It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie, and welcome to Bodyful Day 277. We are talking about shoulder pain and the senses, and today is day 5 of shoulder pain and the senses, and we're talking about the kinesthetic sense. Kinesthetic sense is how our muscles and joints move in space. It is where they are in space in relationship to the rest of our body. And today we're going to talk about how we can use how the kinesthetic sense actually fiddles with our shoulder pain and how we can help it so that it feels better. All right, let's start out with our basics. Go ahead and take a deep breath in and release. Take a deep breath in, expand in the belly, expand in the chest, expand in the sinuses, and release. And since we're talking about the kinesthetic sense and shoulder pain, I want you to think about the shoulder pain, whenever you've had shoulder pain, what the underlying muscles have felt like, the tightness in and around that shoulder, and breathe into that. And release. Now, this is day 5, and on day 5 you remember that I love shoulders because they are so complicated. They can be off because of what's in your tailbone all the way up to the top of your head. Shoulders just aren't just the ribs and the vertebrae that exist in this area and maybe a little bit of the neck. They are the whole system, and they are affected by so many things. Traditional Chinese medicine has about 4 to 5 different meridians running in and around the shoulder, which can cause additional garbage that can be in there. So it can be a meridian and energy thing, not just a structural thing. And so anytime there is pain in muscles or ligaments or tendons that are holding anything together in here, that is your kinesthetic sense. That is, where are these things in space? And today we're going to talk about a part of that system that has kinesthetic influence that is really huge, but we don't ever think about it. And that is the AC joint. The AC joint is the acromioclavicular joint. It is the joint that exists between the collarbone, or what is known as the clavicle, and the shoulder blade, or what is known as the scapula. But the little part, there's a little hook that exists on the scapula, which is called the acromion. And the acromion and the clavicle meet just like right here on your shoulder, right in the middle. You can follow your collarbone out and up, and boom, there is your acromioclavicular joint, otherwise known as your AC joint. And I remember the first time I heard about AC joint separations, and they were because I watched a lot of professional football when I was a kid. My father was a very big Packer fan, and so we watched football every weekend. And there were AC separations. You would hear this. The broadcasters would just go, AC separation. Yep, that hit gave him an AC separation. The reason why a hit can give you an acromioclavicular or an AC separation is because you get hit in the shoulder, in the actual bone of your arm, and that pushes against the back of that acromion and your shoulder blade, and it stretches these little ligaments that keep that joint together, just stretches them just apart. And depending upon how hard the hit, it could be a grade 1, a grade 2, a grade 3, a grade 4. 4 different grades, and depending upon the grade, obviously it depends upon how long one has to be bound in order to keep it in there and also to stay off the field. As normal people who are not running around getting hit by 200 to 300 pound people, how do we end up with AC separations? Well, we can end up with AC separations very simple ways. So let's say you slip and you land on your hands. The actual impact of landing on your hands may actually hit the humeral head, that upper arm bone, into the acromion and knock it out of place. You can run into the wall or run, fall into a wall, and that can cause the clavicle to slide, or it can cause the shoulder blade to slide. Anything where you're taking impact in the shoulder can actually cause a small acromioclavicular separation. And then the other one is just actually, I had one patient who was just leaning on her elbow, doing a lot of intense work because she was lying on her belly, working underneath her deck. And she was lying on this shoulder for so long, she sunk into it and sunk into it and sunk into it and sunk into it, and got so tired that as that humeral head went up, it pushed into the shoulder blade and just ever so slightly separated it. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is that we as normal people don't usually ever get AC separations. Those, you get an x-ray, you measure the gap, you say it's a level 1 or grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. But in my clinical experience, there are grade 0 separations. These are minor separations that are kinesthetic in the fact that the bone and the joint are no longer where they're supposed to be. The tendon is being stretched. The muscles are being told they need to do more work because that joint is just separated just enough that it causes all the other muscles and joints, or muscles and joints around the shoulder to tighten up. Now, that can cause extreme stress. You cannot lift your arm up. You end up with tightness in the armpit or tightness right in front of the shoulder. You can end up with some referral up into the neck. It is not a fun thing. And no amount of adjusting will help it. You could just isolate it and not do anything with it. And yes, eventually that joint would kind of heal itself up. But that essentially, an AC joint separation, even a minor one, is like an AC joint sprain. It's as if you've sprained your ankle. There are little ligaments in there that are supposed to hold that joint together, and they've now just come ever so slightly stretched, which means that that stretching is like every time you lift up that arm is like when you roll an ankle, it's already been sprained. So how do you keep that together? You can sling your shoulder. I would recommend something that is easily accessible to people. This is a Kinesio Tape. So Kinesio Tape has a backing on it because the tape is sticky, but it is also elastic. Now, the cool thing about an elastic tape is that you can use it to squeeze a separation together. And the best way to put an AC separation back together that's minor, that's causing some shoulder pain, and how do you know if you have an AC separation? Go ahead and just pinch up here and then move your arm, and you're like, oh hey, look, I can move my arm a lot now without pain, versus ow, 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 ow. You pinch those two or have somebody else pinch that upper area together and you go, whoa, I've got everything I can move now. That's when you get this fancy dancy Kinesio Tape. Now, you don't need a piece that's this big for your shoulder. In fact, they usually have nice little measurements on the back. They can show you how wide it is, so there's places that you can cut. I would probably measure out, about 4 inches, 3 to 4 inches. And what I would do with that is I would cut it. This is a secret, round the corners, because if the corners are straight, what happens is that they start to peel away. So round the corners, cut it, round the corners, take it off of the back. And then what you do is you fold it in half. So let's say this is my 4-inch piece, even though this is a big piece. You fold it in half, and you fold it so that the non-sticky sides are together. And then you have the sticky side here. So imagine that the paper is off. And then you put that right on your AC joint, right in the middle. And you want to put it so that it can strap down to the front and it can strap down to the back. So you kind of put it like this so that it's facing upward. And then you pull down one side. This usually works better with 2 people. Then you pull down one side, stretch, 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 until you get to the last ½ inch, and then you let the ½ inch just sort of sit, and then you do the other thing. You stretch, 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 stretch down the other side until you get to that last ½ inch, and then you lay that last ½ inch down. And what that does is, because this is stretchy, it pulls that joint together and keeps that shoulder in place And since we're talking about the healing equation and kinesthetics, it gives good energy in to the ligaments and the sensory receptors in those ligaments and muscles and says, hey, I am now back where I'm supposed to be. And the shoulder goes, oh, hey, look, I don't have to work so hard. Because now the shoulder muscles don't have to hold the AC joint together. Something else is holding the AC joint together. And just like the way you would tape your ankle if you sprained it, or you put a brace on your ankle if you sprained it, putting the tape on your shoulder allows the shoulder to heal with a little extra protection, but you don't have to totally immobilize it. So I highly recommend, this is the TheraBand. I don't recommend TheraBand brand, but I do recommend having some Kinesio Tape around your house as a way to help with shoulder pain, particularly with this little itty bitty separation that can occur in the acromioclavicular or the AC joint. All right, so that is today's kinesthetic sense. Join me tomorrow. I know we have the sense of touch, and I think we have the sense of hearing left. All right, so join me tomorrow and Sunday for the other 2 parts of this series, and I hope to see you again. Let's finish it off. Take a deep breath in and release. Have a great day.